Hey everybody.
Hello. Welcome to our first official episode of Keeping It Real with Susan and Chalese.
It's like, do you feel comfortable saying your name? I never feel comfortable saying my name.
Yeah, I do.
Of course you do.
Well, you know why? Is because I always
You're
hated my
awesome.
name. Well, yeah, that too. But I always hated my name because nobody could ever say it, and I was always Chelsea, Charlie sometimes.
Right.
And so, like, I had to get good and confident with saying my name. My name is Chalese. And so now it's just like, that's
yeah,
my name.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so saying that every week is going to be, everyone's going to be looking at me like, can she say it yet?
Right? That'll be great. And just fun fact, showed up today, matchy. Again, we were kind of matchy last time for our Facebook Live.
I know I had blue on. That's all I remember.
Oh, yeah, I don't. Anyway. So this podcast that we're going to be doing is focused on loss and grief. And the reason why we got here was because we've both experienced that differently, but deeply experienced loss and grief in our life.
I think so deeply that it changed our path. So, and I think that's what, for me, when I look at it, not saying all deaths aren't huge, right? They're huge. People,
significant.
It's like you feel bad. You lost someone you absolutely love. This is on a level where it changed our whole entire life and existence. And I know there's a lot of you like that as well. So this is for everyone. But just speaking to that depth for us, it's a pretty big deal. It changed our whole life. It changed our life direction, our life path. And so this is going to be a lot of what we've learned through that grief and sorrow and trauma. And it doesn't always have to be death, right? I mean, For everyone, it can be something else. You can change your path or change your life with a multitude of other traumas.
And it doesn't always have to be sad and heavy and...
Why?
It does. I mean, it isn't, though, with us. Which, see? We said before we were going to be sassy. We're serious about that. Like, we're a couple of sassy girls.
Yes. Got some mouths.
We got some mouths on us. And we're not always going to be drinking wine, like we said. Like, today we're drinking coffee, so...
For now.
Maybe after the break. But we have the most awesome conversations together, and that's why we wanted to bring it out. And also, like, I'm definitely one of those people that I believe in being raw and vulnerable and opening up and getting to those dark places and not always focusing on the good stuff either. Yeah. But also talking about the good stuff, remembering the fun times, remembering why maybe this happened. Like, I always say that there's a reason for everything. And I know that is a trigger for some people, but honestly, like, I have truly, everything in my life has brought me to this point, which gives me a reason and a purpose for all the trauma that's happened.
I think it's interesting that you said that, everything happens for a reason. I believe that to a degree, but you said it like it was a huge trigger for me for a really long time. Even though
I could feel that.
I could feel this underlying, there's an underlying knowing of there was something in this, in this death of my husband that was supposed to help me learn and grow and whatever. When people would say that, I would get so angry because everything happens for a reason. That means you left 4 boys without their dad. And that's messed up. So it's like, yes, I believe that. And what happens can be really messed up as well.
Right. And it took me a long time to get to this point too. I remember when my son first passed away, and I was like, I always believed that everything happened for a reason too, but I was also in that phase of I always kept that. And I was like, because I have that, I want to know why. So there has to be a reason behind it. And for me, if there wasn't a reason, then he died for nothing. And that's where I got to. So these are the kind of conversations that we're going to be having in this podcast. So please like, subscribe, comment.
Absolutely.
If you have something that you want to talk about or questions that you have, please let us know, because we want to make this relevant to our viewers and our listeners. And now you're probably wondering, if you don't know us, what our story actually is. So
we just jump off into our conversation,
which is okay. So, Susan, I think we should start with you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
She wants to start with me because I'm, she's like, I want to talk about it. I want to get it out. And I'm like, I don't really like to talk about it.
I talk about mine all the time, and you...
I don't.
So I'm going to let you start.
You're going to let me start. Okay. So
once upon a time, I married a wonderful man, and we had 4 awesome children together and spent lots of years together. And he went jogging one day and collapsed, and his heart had gone into arrhythmia, and they had to life flight him to IMC. How deep are we going? Like this? We have a 30-minute podcast.
We have a 30-minute podcast
to start, and
anyway.
I know that there's going to be details that we jump into in other
yeah,
stories
it's
too,
like
but...
this is. But people always say, "So how did it happen?" Don't you get that?
Yeah.
Like this is a line. So if you don't want to answer this is okay, and I don't want to be offensive, but what happened?
Yeah, every time. I even say that to people. I've even recognized myself saying that to people. I understand.
I mean, because I know they want to know, right? So I just say to people now, why, how did he die? How'd they die?
Right.
Like that. I'm sorry. How'd that happen? But
she's not that cold though when she says it.
Oh God, no. Because I probably am in tears because it instantly shifts all of my pain.
Yeah.
Right there on the surface. Yeah. And so they put him into a medically induced coma and tried to get him back. He collapsed and had paramedics with him within 5 minutes, yet his brain did not get enough oxygen. I think that was a big deal for me. It's like I felt so betrayed by the movies. And,
oh, girl.
And like, if you get CPR quickly, you'll be fine. And so I just assumed he's going to be fine. Oh, we got to him. He's going to be fine. Yeah. No problem. Except, yeah, weird things. Except I could feel him. I'm down trying to help him, and I could feel him behind me. Oh. So
that actually, I don't mean to interrupt, but like there's so many similarities of our story though, because I remember when we were trying to do CPR, or they were trying to do CPR, and Caleb put his head over and threw up, and I was like, oh good, he's fine. And the nurse said he doesn't have a heartbeat, and I was like, what are you talking about? He just threw up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you feel betrayed. Yeah. Absolutely. Also, like, it was the day after Halloween when Rick collapsed. And so I thought he was a big trickster, funny guy. I thought he was playing a joke on me. Oh. So I was just waiting for his eyes pop open and him to be like, so there's all these things going on. And I think that's something that I was thinking about earlier today, like all the emotions when you're in that moment. And that should be a topic. Like,
oh, absolutely.
What you have to, like, the millions of things racing through your brain because you cannot fathom what's really happening, yet the knowing that it's happening.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Let's jot that down. Like, in the moment, what happens in the moment. So his brain never survived. It didn't get enough oxygen, and so they pronounced him brain dead. And that began a journey of a lot of healing. Like, see, I'm already crying. I have niceness to me. And, me being a mother of 4 boys. Like, I don't even know how you do that. I would look at someone probably if they told me they had to do that, and I'd be like, oh my God, how'd you do that? Not realizing I did it.
Because
I
when
did
you're in
it
the moment,
shitty, and I did it great, and I did it horribly, but I did it. I'm still doing it.
right. Well, and when you're in the moment, you just do what you have to do to keep going and keep surviving. And
Yeah.
there's always the people that look back and say, I don't know how you did it. I look at you and say, I don't know how you did it. You look at me and say, I don't know how you did it.
Right.
And you know, everybody else that we talk to, like, I always look at people that I'm like, oh, you're so amazing. How do you do what you do?
Yeah,
but then you
everyone's
realize
life,
that we just do what we have to do to keep moving forward.
Well, you do. Like a lot of, people would have said to me, you're so strong. Like, that's something I hear a lot. I don't feel strong. I'm sure people have said that to you as well. It's like, I don't feel strong, but when you're put in a position in life where you don't have a choice, you just do it. You may not do it as perfectly as you would hope you would, but you do the best you can with what you've got. And
Absolutely.
It's coming to that grace inside of yourself of like really looking at your situation and understanding what it was. So my boys were 14, 12, 10, and 5, right? So not only are we just hitting the teenage years of hormones and rebellion, and now it's all on me. I think I've, I don't know, I shouldn't say this, but I've experienced pretty much anything.
Right. All the things.
All on me. Like one day, and I know I'm talking a lot, so I'll pass it over to you, but just so you guys understand, like one day I got a call from every single principal, and 2 of my boys went to the same school, so they called me twice.
Oh, that's fun.
It was great.
So how did you handle it? Like, what was your first initial feeling or thought when that happened? Like that day, like you keep going through these motions, like just that day.
It's exhausting. It just makes you cry, and I don't know. Because at that point, like by the time we got to that day, I had already been called by principals time and time again. So when it was all like by the 4th phone call, I think I probably laughed because I'm a little bit demented, and was like, oh, just give it to me all today.
Right? Just
like, throw it on, you know? So it's hard. It's tiring. It's like you don't know what to do for those beautiful souls, and they're struggling. And then people want to give them a break, and it's like, no, you can't give them a break. You can't. Then they're going to use this the rest of their life.
Yeah.
As a cop out. And
right. So was this soon after Rick passed, or was it like just?
It's also foggy. Like, I'm gonna say within a year or 2,
which is still
because that's still really fresh.
Was it for fighting or for just obstinance? Fluffing school? You know,
I don't remember. I only remember one of them, and it was because, obstinate. One of them decided to go into the faculty's little room, lunchroom, and get a soda. And so it was like, I'm just going to do what I want. What are you going to do to me? Type thing. And it's like, now you have to keep the rules. And
well, just so you know, I know all of your boys, and you have done an amazing job because they are incredible kids, and I love them like they were mine. Like, I like to adopt children. Your kids are my kids. If you want mine, you can have them.
No. I don't want any more kids.
No. Well, it's like you know, when you're a grandma and stuff, you can always give them back.
I'm not even ready to be a grandma. Like, that's how tired I am.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not that I don't you know, I'll do my kids all the time. I love them. I'll always do that. But it's like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Give me grandkids in 10 years.
Right? Well, on that note, let's take a short break. And when we come back, you can hear my story.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome back to Keeping It Real with Susan and Chalese.
I'm going to get used to that.
You are going to get used to that.
So, I'm like, yeah, now,
Go
so tell us a little bit about you and your story.
So my story, 16 and a half years ago, June of 2004, I took my son to Caleb, and he was 4 years old, and we went with some friends to a water park, and we're having actually the best day. And at that point in time, it was really hard for me because I was a single mom, and his dad barely came back into the picture, and that's a whole other story. But I was able to go with my friend Rose and her grandkids and everything, and they're having the time of their life. We were having a really good day, and we went to the pool part of the water park, and that's where the accident happened. And honestly, I don't usually go into much detail when I'm telling my story, but I'll go into a little bit of it just because you talked about your...
Well, I went into...
I mean, that moment...
Other ways people are going to call it,
Yeah, exactly. And at that moment when, you know, I felt this feeling of like, it's time to go. Like, we need to go. And he was playing with the kids and,
that's,
you know, everything.
I had a feeling too. Like, that's okay.
Yeah. And so I turned to my friend and her daughter, and who was my age. Her daughter was my age. And I was like, I said, I think we should go, you know, go get our stuff and get ready to go. And we're kind of talking about this, and like, it's almost like everything turned into slow motion for me. And all of a sudden I look back, and it wasn't even, time at this point is irrelevant. Like, it was an instant, and it was forever at the same time.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, it's just like when you're talking, it's time to go. Do you think we should go? Like, should we go get lunch? Should we, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, the world stops.
Yeah.
And
all the things going on in your brain.
Absolutely. And then all the kids start getting out of the pool, and there's this commotion, and I look over, and they're pulling out this kid from the pool, and I look over, and I was like, that's not my boy, as I'm walking towards them. And there's this weird moment that happened too, that was like, it's going to be okay, and it's not going to be okay at the same time. Like, it's this weird feeling, this weird, like, blink of a moment that I to this day remember.
Oh,
Yeah. And it's like it happened yesterday. And
it's a really weird feeling.
It is a really weird feeling.
I was trying to speak of that when it's like you have all these things going through your head, and you're like, it's going to be okay, but then you know something's
not okay.
Like, this isn't happening. No, this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredibly, it's such a weird thing. I don't know what other word to use for it. It's just, but anyway, so I'm walking over there, and and I'm usually the mom. I still am this mom, but at the time, you know, I was this mom that in panic situations, I take control. Like, I switch into autopilot mode, and I handle it. Like, I handle life. Like, that's just what I've always done and who I am. This time was not that mom. And it was really weird. And Rose was like, Chalese, and, you know, we get down, and she's like, we might have to give CPR because these kids they're 17 and 16. One had been on the job for 2 days. One had been on the job for 2 weeks.
Oh, man.
And their
worst nightmare as well.
Their worst, yes, absolutely. I mean, completely their worst nightmare too. And a nurse was there. She jumped in and started instructing them to do this. And my friend Rose and I got down, and because we've been trained in CPR, we worked with people, we know how to do CPR as well. And her daughter also got down, and she's like, Chalese, just sing to him while they're doing this. Just sing to him. I couldn't remember his favorite song that I sang every single night, like probably 100 times. Couldn't remember the words to it at all. And I'm like not knowing what to do. And I'm just at this point freaking out. Like I started freaking out. And that's when he turned and threw up. And then she's like, no, there's no heartbeat. And it felt like an eternity before the paramedics got there. But I know that it probably was within 10, 15 minutes or less. Like, I don't even know. Like I said, time at that point didn't even exist. And so they were, later I found out they weren't even able to get a line into him or anything. I did notice like a bump on his head. So what I think happened, because there were a lot, like they were overbooked in that pool, and there were older boys jumping in, and he was big for his age. And so they were kind of all playing together. And I think what happened was they jumped in on him and he hit his head on the side. And that is what took him under. And that's why it, like, the chaos and everything happened. Because anyway,
I've never heard that part.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's, and to me, honestly, because it's so hard when people are like, oh, I think like either burning or drowning would be the worst deaths ever. And I'm like, not drowning. You're like, please don't say that. Yeah. Like that is, it is like, it's just this feeling of just like, oh, I don't want my son to
have had to go through that.
Yeah.
I get that.
These are all the things that come up.
They all come up. Like, what did they feel? What was racing through their mind? Did they know something was wrong? Did all of it? Yeah.
So then the paramedics came. They weren't able to get a line in. They did have a defibrillator because there wasn't a defibrillator on site, which actually was required by law to have, and they didn't have it. And so then, of course, those thoughts of like, if they did, like all the things in the movies, like all the, So anyway, that doesn't matter at this point. But they took him and life flighted him to primaries, and I wasn't able to go with him.
Right.
So my friend Rose had to drive me.
That drive's a long drive.
It's a long drive.
Yep. I had to drive to one hospital, and then from that hospital, they life flighted. And it feels like an eternity. It's like, I don't know, you're just numb.
Yeah.
And in shock.
Shock is definitely
probably medical shock.
Yeah, there was
is.
this because that whole feeling of just like, this isn't happening. Like you were talking about, like this isn't really happening. Like this this doesn't happen to me.
Or like, did you ever feel like, can we rewind like 3 hours? Can I just hit the rewind button?
Yeah,
and then switch some stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once we got to the hospital, I walked in, and I remember crossing over the line to the emergency room and just feeling this like really peaceful feeling come over me. And I'm like, it's going to be okay. I was like confident, and it's going to be okay. And they're giving a shot to this baby. And so I'm like waiting there again, which probably was only a couple of minutes, but it felt like an hour.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sitting here. Hours. And so finally I told them, and they're like, oh, you're Caleb, you're that mom. And they were going to take me into a consulting room, which I didn't understand at that point. But then he was still in the room where they took him. And I was like, well, he's okay, right? To the nurse. And she looked at me and she's like, no. And that's when I totally collapsed. And like Rose and the nurse had to like carry me to sit down across the room. And his dad had gotten there before me, and we were divorced at that point. And like, obviously, because I was a single mom, and the one time he showed up because the cops went and got him and brought him there before I could get there, because he just lived down the street.
Oh, wow.
And so that was, oh man. But I mean, they were really good there, and the doctor came out and she was just sobbing, like she felt so bad. And so, yeah, I just sat there and I held him.
It affects the medical workers too. Like anyone that tried to help on the path, it has seemed to be, they are forever affected.
Oh yeah,
as well.
And one of the coolest things, one of the coolest stories is that I actually ended up meeting one of the lifeguards many years later, who has babies of her own, and she reached out to me, and that's a whole other story. But yeah, meeting her and hugging her, because I was really angry for a long time with them. Like, I mean, I know that they were kids too, but at that time, like, it didn't matter to me. Like, you were, you know,
too.
Yeah.
You were young too.
Yeah.
How old were you? Like 20?
I was 25.
Oh, you were 25.
Yeah.
Okay. That's young.
Yeah, but she was only 16, and to hear her side of the story was very eye-opening to me as well. But then when I met her, she came to hear me speak, and she had her baby with her, and I just hugged her and her baby and just cried, and it was really, really good.
That is
so good. But, and that's just the very, that's how it happened. That was that day. And of course, you know, to this day, I didn't have anyone to take care of after that. So I had a different path that I took, and I didn't have to raise boys by myself. And I got to be alone through my healing, and did a lot of self-medicating, and that's a whole other topic too.
Everyone does something like that. Yeah. It's just whatever it's gonna be.
Yeah. But I mean, I think I know that's been a heavy podcast for this one, a heavy one.
Yeah, but at least they get to know, okay, here's this story. Let's get to know these two. Let's get to know from what angle they're speaking from, what their experiences were.
Right. So from there, what we've done now, Susan, what have you, what path did this whole trauma take you down?
I think, you know, like you said, I would say for many years, probably right now, is I'm more focusing on myself. But it was a lot of trying to keep the family together and take care of the family and everything. What it has done for me is I've always been really intuitive and psychic, and tried to hide it, and was really ashamed of it, because I felt as a really young child that something was wrong with me and I was not okay. And that I don't know if any of you have felt this or whatever, but having those attributes, it was I was in danger almost. Not like anyone was gonna do anything, but it's so not accepted, and especially 48 years ago, by culture and society. And, you know, being raised in a more religious home where you don't get to have that knowledge from within. It's supposed to come from something outside of you. It made me feel like I was bad. So It's been really, really bad. So it's been a lifetime of getting accepting that I can do it, or do it. It's not I can or whatever, it just happens. And I think everyone can to some degree. So I don't feel special, you know, or whatever. It's just what it is. So accepting it, and that comes with a lot of experimenting and playing around, and, you know, it's been a fun path. It's also been a hard path. And then feeling victimized by it, oh my gosh, I can feel, you know, all of that, and then moving to a profession where it's I can feel this, I do this. I want to help people through this. And it's really it's about self-love and self-worth, and understanding that you're enough in this very moment right now, which we all struggle with. I struggle with. We were just having a conversation before we went online, and I'm what was it? I can't even remember. But it's really helping people and coaching them through different modalities, to understand you're a badass exactly how you are, and you deserve anything, you know, and then taking that esteem and self-love and moving through there. And you know, to wherever you want to go, but looking at the world in that shift of a paradigm, it doesn't matter what I do, I'm still lovable. Yes, I made mistakes, and I make mistakes every day, and I'm still lovable. I'm totally awesome and cool. And I even get mad. Like, that's one of my biggest things, is helping people through death, through my experience. It's like, I had to go through a lot of really hard feelings, anger, guilt, like survivor's guilt's real, pissed off. Like, I remember someone attacking me because I was mad at him, at Rick, for dying. And they thought I was so disgusting. And it's like, really getting to the point where it's like, no, you can have whatever feeling that you have. You know, anger that he did die, anger at him for dying. Like, you left me with these children. Like, how dare you do that?
Right.
These are real things. And I think that's become one of my biggest passions, is really teaching people. Because a lot of times in this culture, we want to focus on only the positive ones and kind of shove those harder ones down, the anger, the madness, the guilt, but they still sit here in our subconscious, and we're suppressing them, and then they come out in different ways.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, through my sessions and through teaching classes and helping people understand their wiring and themselves and their destiny, it's like, I just want people to love themselves through whatever they're going through. What about you? I know you've done a ton.
I have, and we're actually out of time, but next week we're going to talk about more of the stuff that I do. And just a quick shout out, because one of the things I do is I started a nonprofit, and we help kids with congenital heart disease. So next week I want to talk about how that came about, because it's all part of my story.
That'd be cool.
So if you want to know more of my story, I have a book that I wrote, came out last year, Finding 40, A Mother's Walk with Grief.
Put it up there closer.
Yep, it will be.
No, put
my book up there closer.
So they know.
I also painted that.
Because it's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And the website will be, my website, Susan's website will be on the bottom of the screen and in our little description too. So feel free to go check out more, and subscribe again, comment, like, share, anything that you want, please let us know. And
I'm going to jump in right here too. If you have a story that you want to share, and you know where it got you, or, you know, even if wherever it is, or you just want to share it to honor your loved one, contact us and let us know.
Yep. And we will have you as a guest on our show.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.